For those of us who have spent most of our lives using computers, understanding the concepts of files and folders might seem obvious, but it is important to recognize that there are people out there, yes, even young people, who might not have as much exposure to computer operating systems and therefore might not fully understand the file and folder concept. In this short video, we will be looking at what files and folders are. We'll be looking at file associations and extensions. We'll be looking at some of the actions that you might want to take on files, such as deleting, copying, duplicating, renaming, and we'll just have a quick look at saving files. So in the real world, if you did something like made, let's say, a shopping list, and you wanted to save it for retrieving it later, you would have somewhere to put it, and you would know where it was, and you would be able to go and find it and open it and look at it when you needed to. So on a computer, because everything is digital and data, we need something similar. So any kind of content that you create on a computer, and that could be notes, documents, PDFs, images, music files, video files, proprietary files such as a Photoshop document or an Illustrator document, they all need some way for them to be saved. And on a computer, we call those files. So a file is basically a piece of data that contains your work that is saved with a name that you decide and something called a file extension. And the file extension is what identifies what type of data that is and what application should be used to open that file. So something to note about file extensions is that on a Mac computer, if you're working on a Mac, your file extensions are automatically exposed by default. So you can see here that I have 4 documents, and each one of them has the file extension indicating to me what type of application is going to be used to open the file and what type of file it is. There are also these little icons which suggest Microsoft Word, Adobe Acrobat, and so on. Now, if I switch to Windows, by default, Windows actually hides the file extensions. And this is to try and make things simple, maybe for beginner users. But if you're going to be doing anything in the realm of design or something like that, graphic design, web design, you need to see those file extensions, I believe. So on Windows, what you should do is you should go to your File Explorer. So I'll just close this. You go to your File Explorer, and then you go to View, Show, and make sure File Name Extensions is checked. So now if I go back to that folder, you will see that the file extensions are now exposed. Just get into the habit of making sure that you can see those file extensions. It's quite important. Now, something else to consider is that if I double click on this JPG image here, you'll see that it opens in Microsoft Photos. Now, that might not be the application that I want to open this photo in. So if you have an issue like that where the default application that's associated with that file extension is not the application you want to open it in, so let's say, for example, I want to open this image in Photoshop, you can right-click on the image and you can go to Open With and then choose your app. So in my case, I'm going to go down and choose Photoshop. And then I can decide, do I just want to open it this once with Photoshop, or do I always want to open my JPGs with Photoshop? So it might not be convenient to always have Photoshop open every single JPG image, in which case you say just once. Okay, so that is Windows. On the Mac, if I double click on this image, you can see it opens it up in preview. Now, if I wanted to open this image in Photoshop, I would right click, very similar to Windows, Open With, and I could choose Photoshop if I just wanted it to open this once in Photoshop, or I could go to Other, choose Photoshop, and then say Always Open with Photoshop. That's if I wanted those all JPGs to always open with Photoshop. Okay, so those are two things to consider. And then finally, just to show you an example of how you can save files, I'm sure that you have experienced this before. This is Adobe Illustrator open. So if I've done a design that I want to save, I would go to File, Save As, and then I would choose my destination and set my file name. There's going to be a separate video on navigating and file naming. And if I'm in a Word document, I would go to File, Save As, same thing. Okay, so every application, almost every application, will give you the option to save your work as you go. And it's a good idea to save early on while you're working and to continue saving as you go. So that's files. Now a folder is exactly what you might imagine it is. It's just a place to put lots of files. So just the same as you would in the real world, take multiple documents and put them into a folder. So a folder can be just like, for example, this files folder that contains some images, or it can be, let me just bring this here, or it can have folders within folders. So here I have all sorts of stuff with folders and then subfolders and so on. So you can organize your files however you want to. It's just a way of organizing things. So on a Mac, to create a new folder, you would right-click, say New Folder, and you would give it a name. To make a subfolder, you would go inside that folder and right-click, New Folder, and make a subfolder. On Windows, you would do exactly the same thing. Now, this isn't the only way to make folders. You can make folders in multiple ways, but I would right-click and go to New Folder. And go inside that folder, right-click, New Folder. And so I can build up a folder structure. Moving on to file actions, we're going to be looking at deleting, moving, duplicating, and renaming files. So first one is delete. So I'm on a Mac first. So I'm going to go to files here. So whatever files there are, could be a folder, could be a file. You can right-click on the file and you can move to bin. Now remember that moves it to your bin here, and from there you can restore it or empty your bin. The shortcut for deleting is Command Delete. I'm not going to actually delete these. On Windows, you just go in here. To delete, you can right-click on a file. Just do that again. And you'll see up at the top here, you have this little toolbar here where you've got delete, little dustbin. Okay. And you can also just press delete on your keyboard as well. To move files back on a Mac here, so let's say I've got this second folder going on here, and I want to move a file from this folder to this folder, I can simply drag and drop. So click and hold and drag and drop, or I can copy and paste. So if I select some files, right click, copy, there, copy, and then here, right click, paste two items. Okay, so that's moving. Let's go and have a look under Windows here. So again, I've got a second folder here. So the Windows is a little bit slow because it's a virtual machine. So to move a file from one folder to another, it's exactly the same thing. I can drag and drop. Okay, and that will literally move it. I'll just undo that. So Control Z on Mac, Command Z to undo. Or I can right click and copy. So that's this button here. And then go here, right click and paste. Okay, so that's moving a file from one place to another. Duplicating a file. So if I want to make a copy of a file, just remember that you can't have two files with identical names inside the same folder. So if I wanted to make a copy of this terms and conditions into the same folder, if I drag and hold down Option on the Mac, you can see you get a little plus sign, and if I release, it makes a copy, but it puts a 2 after it. So it says this is a copy of the original. If I right-click and copy, and then right-click and paste, it will put a copy. So terms and conditions copy. So it can't have exactly the same name. If I want to make a duplicate of something to another folder, I can either copy and paste. So right-click, copy, and then another folder, right-click, paste item, or I can hold down Alt while I drag, and you'll see I get a little plus, and it will make a copy with identical name because they're in two separate folders, so they can have exactly the same name. All right, so that's Mac. On Windows, it's similar. So if I wanted to make a copy of this project 1 into the same folder, I could copy, so right-click, copy, or you can press the shortcuts Control-C and Control-V to paste on the Mac, Command-C, Command-V. And now I'm going to paste, so right-click, paste, there it is, and you'll see that it says copy. Now, another way is to hold down Control and drag, and you can see that it also makes a copy. Now, if I was to want to make a copy to another folder, I can either copy and paste, or I can do the same thing. I can hold down Control and drag. This time it won't put copy because it's in a separate folder with the same name. Okay, so that's moving or duplicating files. And then finally renaming, so back on the Mac, if I wanted to rename, say, this terms and conditions to T's and C's, there's two main ways to do it. One is just to select the file first and then to click on the name again, and you'll see that it becomes available to rename, and I can type T's and C's. Okay, the other way is just to select the file and press enter, and you can rename it. Okay, so that's renaming. Of course, you can do it the long way and right-click and choose rename, but that's a bit of a long-winded way of doing it. On Windows, if I click on the name of a file and then again, it allows me, so it's not a double click, it's a slow 2 clicks. I can then rename whatever I want to. I can also right-click and go to this one here, this button here, which says rename. And I can also make a new name. Okay, so that's renaming your file. So those are the 4 things: delete, move, copy or duplicate, and rename.